Have you ever met someone with an old soul? Reed Veit is just that. At only 27 years old, Reed has started his own business building saddles and handmade gear. Driven by a deep respect for tradition and a desire to keep old cowboy ways alive, he believes in honoring the craft and passing the cowboy legacy on to the next generation. Today we visit a real Montana saddle shop and sit down with Reed to talk about how he got started, what inspires his work, and why traditional craftsmanship still matters. Saddle up as we take a deep dive into mule and horse tack and the detailed process it takes to build quality gear.
Hi, I'm Reed Veit with Reed Veit Saddlery. We're here in Roundup, Montana. I got into building saddles 4 years ago, just trying to be a benefit to the working cowboy. I haven't always been artistic, but I've been kind of crafty, liked to build things and sell them or give them as a present, and it all just kind of came together in saddles. I took an interest in horses and saddlery and went to several different makers and just kind of developed a love for it and have tried to do my best ever since then and always get better. To be completely honest with you, I do not have very many friends my age. The vast majority of my very close friends are in the late 50s to early 70s range is the demographic I really get along with. So I don't know, I don't fit into people my age, but I really get along with the older gentlemen in the craft. On that point, I grew up in Malta, Montana, which is 2 hours north of here, and there was two old men, and one built harness and one built wagons, and no one really took the time to learn from them. And they both got sick, and within 2 months they died, and all of that knowledge was lost. And that spurred me hard to learn some of these cowboy trades, thinking if someone does not learn this, these trades will be gone. So that's how I wound up here. Well, my first passion was trapping, by all means, trapping coyotes and fox and all other manner of fur-bearing critters. And what drew me to mules is in all the old books and movies and stuff of mountain men, they had mules. And I just always thought they were so cool. And so when I got the opportunity to get mules, I started to incorporate my mule into everything that I try and do. I enjoy going out and working cattle. I really love to rope. I like to be a benefit to the local ranchers in trapping and in riding and just trying to make a hand. Young man, just trying to make it. So these breeches are a full Ty Evans design. We sat down in his tack room and took measurements and went over everything he did like and what he didn't like on the breeches that he had, and kind of came up with this pattern to go with. So all of my breeches have a full rolled leather edge so that there's no raw edge to rub your mule. This stitch is hidden underneath the butt plate, so there's no top stitch to rub or either any kind of friction on any kind of hair. There is one stitch on the bottom. It's unavoidable. But everything is built to last. Heavy duty. Good harness leather is a must. Everything is riveted here, these D's. There's not a single Conway buckle on these things. Everything is roller buckles. They're easy to adjust. I feel like there's plenty of adjustment. These fit a very wide variety of mules. This standard pattern, I can make them custom however you want, but this is my standard pattern that fits the average mule. It goes real big, and they also fit colts. I've got friends that have got little colts and they fit them great. And my tail plate, or my spider plate, whatever you want to call it, always has sheepskin. The edges are always finished up real nice. That way that is not rubbing hair off of your mule's croup above their tail head at all. So everything here is built with the comfort of the mule in mind. There's no, all the rivets are set kind of upside down, pretty side down. That way that's nice and smooth against them. There's no burrs to get your mule at all. Plenty of adjustment, easy snaps to use, roller buckles like I've said. I personally think that they're the cat's pajamas.
What all colors and like styles do you offer?
Okay, so I've got light for the main body right now on Britchens, and this could change in the future. But I've got the light body ones, and I've got dark body ones. I personally think that this is a really sharp color. People seem to like dark oil stuff. A lot of tack is dark oiled, and this would fit right into the standard tack room. As far as the shaft leather on the seat, I've got chocolate. That's these two colors. I've got butter, and I think that that's a really attractive light color that would really complement a light mule or a dark mule if you're looking for some contrast. And then I have buck tan. Very similar to the butter, but it's a little bit darker. I also think that it's a very attractive color that could complement a light mule that has some darker tones to it, I guess, is my thoughts there. But yeah, those are the three standard colors that I have in my shop right now. In the future, I will be getting some different colors. Maybe some brighter ones and maybe some darker ones, I don't know, but I'm gonna go down to Boyd Ranch and see what sells.
Yeah, heck yeah. You mentioned just a second ago that you call it shaft leather that's on the, I don't know what that's called.
On the seat,
on the
butt
seat. Yeah, and when we got Alyssa's, that was one of the first things I noticed. It's not rigid, there's no sharp edges, it's really soft where it sits up against their butt.
Yes. Everything on them is just
Smooth. Yeah.
Yep, and that's what I'm trying to do with everything that I make is smooth and nice. Straight and smooth. Nothing hard and jagged.
I like it.
Yeah. This is just my standard pulling collar pattern. It seems to fit horses and mules really nice. It's all one piece. I love this pattern. But yeah, just a smooth out breast collar. I got it finished up nice. I personally think it's a really attractive color the way I have it finished right now, and I've got a pretty cool concho on there, custom made for me, that a cowboy riding a mule, and they're roping a jackalope on there. So that's kind of fun. Should add some flash to anyone's gear if they're into that.
Heck yeah. You don't see many conchos with roping mules on them.
No, sir. No, you don't. And I've found that there's not a lot of people who build specifically for mules, and I've found that that's a market to be not cornered, but that's a market that needs to be aided.
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff out there that isn't really practical for mules out there, and I think it's because up here in the West, they're not very common. Down back east, they're quite common. They've got a lot of mules in Missouri and Arkansas and places like that.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm trying to aid everyone. Mule people, the trail riders, if you're ranching on a mule, I absolutely love it. I also market to working cowboys, are my favorite people to market to. I just want to be a benefit to the trade, and anyone who has stock, happy to help you with whatever you need. Well, my standard is that it's got to last, but it also has to be functional. It can't be so heavy that you can't move your buckles up and down. On a headstall, on a breast collar, on hobbles. It can't be so heavy that it's not functional, but it's also got to be built to last. So there's a fine line between what's going to work and what's not going to work, if that makes sense.
Totally.
When I was starting out, I had a really hard trouble. I didn't have any kind of splitter. I didn't have the concept in my mind that some of this really heavy leather needs to be split down so that it's more functional. And that I ran into a lot of trouble there with too heavy and too stiff of stuff. And then I went the opposite direction and had too light of things. And luckily it was my own gear that I learned from my mistakes on. I didn't really peddle it off to other people and then they come back and say this is a piece of junk. I kind of got to experiment on it on my own horses and other horses I was around to figure out kind of what worked and what didn't. And there's times I still struggle with that, but it's just part of the game. To me, what makes a good saddle in the mark of a craftsman. The first thing I look at is lines on the saddle. It's got to flow. It's got to be all the pieces have got to be complementary to one another, and I can show you that. But the second thing I look for is materials. I try and judge how good a material they used on their saddle. If they used some cheaper leather or thinner leather that maybe won't hold up in the long run. The third thing I look for is tight. Saddles have got to be tight to each other. All of the pieces have got to lay down flat. They've got to not peel away. What most craftsmen look for is like the tight fit of the jockeys. Right here, this piece on top of your skirt is called a jockey. And the fit to the cantle back is one of the first things I look at. Get a nice tight fit there. There's not a 1/4 inch gap or an 1/8 inch gap. There's no ugly lines. If it has a Cheyenne roll on it, I try and look for a uniform bend across there where it's all the same from one side to the other and it doesn't flare out here, because that's really easy to do. It's hard to get it down flat and pushed over all the way. Like your seat, it's hard to tell on this style that I did here, but lots of seats that they'll pull away here when it runs up on the fork, and here in the front juncture of the skirt in the fork. The leather, they either put it on too wet or too dry, and it will pull away over time as that leather constricts. And it's just not conducive to success, in my opinion. That just leaves more leather to snag. It leaves a space for stuff to get in there. Hair, dirt. I've even found gravel inside of underneath skirts between the tree and the skirt, and that's just from people using it and maybe throwing it in the dirt, or like, I don't know how that happens, but rocks got underneath there nonetheless. And that was probably due to a poor fitting part on the saddle, left a gap for rocks to get in there. So you gotta kind of be conscious of all these things. The tree in your saddle is very similar to the foundation of a house. You can build a beautiful saddle, you can build a beautiful house, but if your foundation is poor, then it'll always be poor, in my opinion. You know, your concrete could crumble, your house could fall down, it'll crack, it'll become unlevel, it'll settle over time, things like that. So starting with a good quality tree is something I really try and encourage people to do. It's worth the time to wait for them, and it's worth the money you pay for them. It absolutely is. I have 1000% faith in the trees that I use on the main basis. But when I'm looking at a tree, the things I look for are tight. If it's a rawhided tree, tight seams. The rawhide is not shrunk back and created a gap in there, because the rawhide is just like a suit of armor for your tree. It's harder, it's drum tight, it's dry, it's really hard. You could chuck this across the room and it isn't going to hurt it. going to, but you could. That's what I look for. And there's no, just like the Britchens and other tack, there's no real sharp edges. Everything is round. Everything is smooth. Everything flows to begin with. And there's oftentimes you can look at a built saddle, a finished saddle, and I can tell if there was a good tree in there or not. Just from the shapes. Just from the shape of the fork and the horn and the cantle and all of this stuff. Sometimes it's pretty easy to see that it was built on a poorer quality tree when it's not necessarily cutting corners. Some of these quicker trees to get work for some people and they don't work for others. But it's not the standard I try and hold in my shop. I want to be good. I don't need to be the best, but I want to start off with as much. I want no rope to hang myself. I want to start with good stuff and good materials, and therefore you'll come out with a good product. This twist, lots of people call it lots of different things. I've heard it called the Hamley twist. I've heard it called like a Arizona twist. I don't know what its Christian name is, but they're twisted, all right. So this is turned that way. Your stirrup points forward and not like not flat like this. For one, that's kind of a pain in the butt when it's laying flat. It's a little harder to get your foot in the stirrup. It's a little harder to mount up, and then it's harder to catch your right stirrup when you're aboard your saddle. And then you gotta get your toe and you gotta waller around on your mule or your horse trying to get your other stirrup, and that gives them opportunity to move off or eat grass or fall into any number of sin that you don't want them to do. The best thing to do is to swing aboard, you catch your stirrup, and now you're ready to control your animal, right? You're not wallering around up on top of them. Another benefit to it, in my opinion, is when the stirrups are flat, when they are not twisted, your stirrup leathers, your stirrups and your fender are always going to want to go back to its original form. Leather has memory. And maybe you ride it for several years, eventually it'll break in and get pointed out to where it lays natural for you. But to start off, I want to have them turned just right for the rider to be able to get their stirrups and ride. But when they're flat and you're riding, my original point here is your stirrups and your fenders are always going to want to go back to their original state, and that is going to tweak your feet and it's going to tweak your knees all day. Your feet are going to want to come in, and then you get off and you go, God dang, I'm sore. So I'm just trying to help the rider as much as I can. And in my unbiased opinion, if I see a completed saddle and the stirrups are flat, it's not finished. It's not a finished piece.
All right, and my last question off the top of my head is, why would I buy a custom saddle versus just going to the ranch store and buying one off the shelf? What's the difference?
The difference is a lot of time quality. Quality for number one. Quality in materials, quality in craftsmanship. A lot of the saddles that you could just walk into the feed store and buy are built on a production line. They're just cookie cutter saddles. You don't know what kind of tree is in there. Lots of times those trees are hollow. I've seen this, where it's just a form of fiberglass and there's no substance inside of there. Sometimes there's metal bars inside of it to give it some rigidness, and I just think that it's poor. The benefit of buying a custom saddle from someone you trust is they can help you get a tree that is going to fit your animal, whatever you're riding, a horse, or a mule. Get a better idea of what's going to fit your animal best, and then they are going to take their time to make the ground seat, this shape right here where the rider sits, is nice and as smooth and as comfortable for you as possible. They're going to paint over it for 4 or 5 days to get it formed just right. For them, for their personal preference, and for yours. So that's kind of the benefit. Handmade stuff, in my opinion, is almost always better than just a factory built saddle. And sometimes people don't have the money or they don't have the time, and that's just what they've got to do, and that's what you've got. Can't do anything about it. But when it's time to purchase something that you're going to ride for the rest of your life and perhaps pass down to your kids and your grandkids, something built to last with durable material is always the way to go, in my opinion.
So we're lucky enough to have 2 custom saddles in the shop right now. Can you tell us a little bit about these 2 saddles and what makes them special?
Yeah, absolutely. These 2 saddles are by far the nicest pieces I've ever built. They're for 2 good friends of mine. These saddles here have everything on them fancy that can be. They have a recessed fork cover, which means that your seat just flows right nice and smooth. It's not 2 layers of leather laying flat on top of one another that can catch sticks or rocks or dirt or hair or anything can't fall down into there. It's just nice and smooth. This recessed fork cover is so that the seat lays flush, everything is smooth. There's no transition from one layer of leather to the next. And the next thing that they have is a recessed cantle bind. So the seat leather itself is shaved down evenly, smoothly, so that you're to the right depth, that the cantle bind fits perfectly up against the seat for a completely smooth transition. That would lend itself to roping. If you're roping and you're running a rope across the top of your cantle all the time, you're not going to work. You're going to be slower to wear out your cantle binding than you would be on average. Or you're leading a string of mules and your rope is always riding right here. There's no lip. Once again, it's just completely inlaid, recessed, completely smooth, completely flat, and it just looks classy, in my opinion. So the rest of these custom saddles is they've got matching breast collars for both saddles here. They've got matching back cinches, of course. They've got matching hobbles right here laced on there, but all the stamping matches everything else. All the hardware matches right down to the stirrup bolt. I did a half cover on the stirrups just to add a little flash and a little bit of protection for your stirrup over time, and it all matches, it all flows right down to the rivets. Even the rivets are fancy to match the hardware on the saddles themselves. This back cinch is kind of a complicated design, but the liner folds up and over the buckle and becomes your pouch. So it's all one piece, and that's just kind of a fancy thing to do. I think it looks classy, I think it looks cool, it's a neat design, and I like it. Also, I've got matching saddlebags for both sets. All one piece across the top. All matching, and it's built. I'm not going to thread my strings through there, but it's built so it sits completely flush up against the cantle. There's no gap for sticks or twigs or leaves or anything to fall down inside of there. And yeah, I've just built these whole sets with matching and comfort and class in mind. I'm just a kid and I'm trying to do better, cleaner work all the time with everything that I do. So right now my lead time for a custom saddle is kind of varied. For one, the biggest obstacle is the tree. To get a good custom tree like this one is a 9-month wait. And these trees cost $900 and they're worth every penny. And after that, it just depends on how many orders are before you. But I've been telling people 8 to 9 months after we get your tree. So if we have to wait 9 months for your tree, then you got about 1.5 years a wait time. And I'm sorry, that sucks. I wish it was shorter, but it can't be, and quality work takes time, and it's often worth the wait.
And that's a lot quicker than a lot of other saddle shops that have up to 5-year wait for a custom saddle that's built with quality like this.
Yes.
So that's about as good as it gets right now, I think.
Yeah, it's about as quick as you're going to find a custom one.
Yeah.
So a custom saddle with a good tree in it automatically will lend itself more to a more production saddle with a cheaper tree in it. And a lot of the problem is, to start with, the angle of the cantle. This is your cantle where your butt goes up against. This angle right here lends itself better for the rider to sit back in a comfortable position. A lot of these factory trees, my mentors, older men who have been in the trade longer than I've been alive, almost twice over, tell me their biggest complaint with the factory trees is the angle of the cantle is too straight up. And no matter what the saddle maker does, you cannot put a good ground seat in it. Good is a matter of opinion. But the straight up cantle automatically sits you forward. It has to. There's no possible way to get back. And it's super hard for the saddle maker to make a ground seat in there that's going to sit you back. And you can make them to where they really peak up. They really get narrow right here and they really peak up high. And then you're forced to sit back, so one that can trap you in the back, and it's hard to sit up out of a post to a trot, or sit up and lope, or sit up and rope, or do whatever you want to do. But also with that big peak in the ground seat, you can crack your pelvis. And then there is such a thing as too narrow. You'll get split in half on it. It's like a splitting wedge in your ground seat, pretty much. So I always try and bear that in mind. People say, I want this to really sit me back. But that doesn't mean that it needs to be super narrow and knife edge sharp in the front, so where you can get in a bind and actually really get hurt bad for it. But that's one of the biggest differences in a factory tree, in a factory saddle, as far in versus custom, is the tree is already setting you up for success, and your saddle maker is going to torture himself over making a good ground seat. Because if you've got a bad ground seat, then you've got a bad saddle. It doesn't matter how beautiful it is, how pretty, how fancy, how flashy. If it doesn't feel good to you, then you're not going to want to ride it.
So I know you're at least going to Boyd Ranch Mule Days this year and taking some of your gear down there. What kind of things do you take to a show like that?
Yes, sir. So the other things I'm taking to this show, besides the breeches and the breast collar that we already showed earlier in the video, is I'm going down with hobbles. Everyone needs a good set of trail hobbles. Easy to run into themselves, easy to buckle. Good for your horse or mule to get broke to hobbles all the time in case you need to get down for an extended period and hobble them up, let them eat some grass. I made up a bunch of these little horn bags, are kind of fun. My fiance Hannah is always working with me in the shop when she doesn't have other stuff to do, and she's very artsy, she's very talented as far as painting and drawing, and she's just a crafty gal. So Hannah painted up some of these horn bags. You just drape this over your saddle horn. There's a length of leather on the back that you can tie it down to your front rigging or wherever is solid, so that you're not flopping around all the time. And yeah, so she's painted, like this one has got the green person leading a pack string in the mountains, and the gusset, the green gusset, kind of matches the theme of the bag. And I think that these are really cool, really handy. If you're out, you can put your phone in it, you can put a bottle of water in it, you can do whatever you like. Going down with feed bags, I've got a bunch of these feed bags made up for when you're in camp. If you don't have, well, you can't pack pans up into the wilderness to feed grain or oats or whatever you have, and you don't want to spill it out on the ground. It's pretty easy just to put some grain inside of these, put this over your mule's head, and then for one, the other mules can't beat them off of it and steal their grain. And these are easy, they can kind of smash up and fit in a saddlebag. I've got a good stiff top on them so that they keep their shape, they're not collapsing in on themselves all the time. I just think that these are handier than pockets on a shirt. I'll be going down with just a couple head stalls, but this is one I'd like to show. It's all nice, fancy bronze hardware. Everything matches, everything's easy to adjust. Just a nice, attractive head stall that'll complement any mule, light or dark.
And it has that balance between durability and usability.
It's got the balance between durability, usability, and class. It's got the finest bridle leather that I could get my hands on, and personally, I'm just in love with it. And I'll have more stuff than what I can show you today, but I've got saddlebags. This is just a couple examples of the saddlebags that I have. This kind of style. A nice, pretty set stamp that kind of matches that other saddle there, but yeah. This would be nice if you have a light tack set, if you have a light mule, or you just like the light leather, then these are for you. Who doesn't? I always put tugs on the back, cinch them down, that way they're not just flopping all over heck when you're loping or riding down the trail. And I just try and build everything with durability and functionability in mind. I got lots of adjustment in my straps. That way, if you fill this pump full of stuff, you still have enough strap to get down and buckle to your saddlebags. I always put my tugs where they fold over, and that kind of lends itself to keeping your bag closed, in my opinion. That buckle folding up over the top flap just kind of helps it cinch down a little better, in my opinion. And then I got this. These are a fancier set of stamped chocolate saddlebags that are sure to tip you over if you've got a nice dark mule or a nice dark tack set. And people seem to really like this chocolate color, and I think that they just look pretty classy. So I also have latigos. I've got a whole bunch of latigos going down in varying lengths. I've got 8s, I've got 7s, and I've got 6-foot latigos. Some are stitched and some are not, but this one is stitched, kind of an attractive style to add some flash to whatever piece of gear you have going down. If you like a little bit of flash, then you can sure have it. I also have split reins. I've got a pile of split reins, and they're all greased up and they're all oiled up, and I didn't want to get any of their stuff on my nice products, so I don't have them in my hand to show you, but I'll have them at Boyd Ranch Mule Days, and I have them on hand, so if you need anything, please let me know.
How do we, like, if I wanted to buy something online, are you set up to do that right now?
I'm not set up to buy online. Usually, if you just send me a message on Facebook, you can find me on Instagram, both at Reed Veit Saddlery, that's ReedVeit, Saddlery, all one word, and on Instagram. You just got to send me a message, and I can get you my phone number, and give me a shout, and we can talk over whatever you like. I'd really appreciate it if you just send me a direct message. It's usually the easiest way for me. We can swap phone numbers, get a phone call lined up, figure out what you're wanting, what you're needing, and I can get it in the mail as soon as I can. That's the easiest way for me. was slow.
Yep.
I shot him down and I went on the run to the land where cedars grow. How was that?
It was good.
I think Dave Stabey will let me sing with him.
Maybe.
Probably.
Yeah.
You should ask him if you go down to Bryce Canyon.
I had a really hard time frying eggs this morning. My
Yeah.
eggs were all froze. The chickens are cold.